Hey guys, it's Belinda Maston in the MIA room at Jeremy Ranch Elementary School. I am going to be teaching the cylinders that we do in 5th grade. Whether it'll stay a 5th grade project, I don't know. It's the monster heads. So we'll go ahead and get into it. So, start with your bag. So I've discovered probably an inch is what you need, which is quite a big slab of clay. And I would have this pre-prepped before you go ahead and teach it. Make sure they're cut and with parchment paper in between. So roughly about an inch. So let's say this has got, it's been cut into 1-inch slabs. Again, most of the time you need to wedge clay, but this clay is quite smooth, and I think considering this project, we're just going to go ahead and roll it out as is. Otherwise, it's just going to create too much work, and actually quite a lot of the air pockets that are in the clay come out while you're rolling it anyway, and it's just a lot easier because you don't have a lot of time. So go ahead and start rolling this out. We want this to be probably as long as this paint stick, probably from here to here. So get the kids to start rolling it out. Now I like to bang it to loosen it, to make it a bit more pliable. So just get the kids to not get too carried away, because we don't want big divots in it, because it'll create more work for them. Just tell them to go either side and just bang at it. Now sometimes when you do a couple of rolls, it's best to start flipping and turning, because otherwise again it will stick to the table. So get them to flip and turn after a couple of turns. Now you can see these creases here, you need to close them up so no air pockets are formed. Just take note, teach that to your volunteers so they know what to look for while they're walking around the tables helping the kids out. Now the goal is to get it relatively long. So do a couple of rolls and get the kids to pick it up and gently flip it over. Okay, and then we'll just keep rolling. It will just probably thicken out to the width that you need as you roll it. So remember, the goal is to get it to as long as that ruler, this paint stick. So I've got quite a ways to go. It is a long process. Now make sure the children have their bodies over their table, over their piece of work. So if it's creeping up like this, like mine is, get them to move it back here to the end of the table, a room enough for it to expand, so they can get their bodies right over the top of it, so they're not using their lower back, but they're using all of their body weight to roll it out. Now don't worry about the edges too much until the end. If you're finding you're seeing kids rolling and their edges are really thin here and it's really thick here, tell them to focus on the areas that are thick and to start looking on the sides. Wherever it's thick is where they should focus their rolling. So I need to flip. It's been a while since I flipped and it could be stuck to the table. Now if it does stick to the table, use one of these to help lift it up. Okay, that's starting to look like the right length. I'm just going to roll it a few more times and then we should be ready to go. You don't want it too thin. 1/4 inch probably. It's better to have a short cylinder than a really thin walled cylinder. Okay, so I think that's good. I'm not going to go any more because it's starting to really get thin. These can work as your guides as well to see how thick it is. So any kind of cracks, go ahead and wipe those out. And then I would go ahead, flip that again, and then just get them to work out any air bubbles or any cracks again while they can. I just like to use my fingers. You can also use these rubber tools. They're super handy with smoothing things out. Okay, now I'm going to use one of these rings. We have them in the clay supply cupboard right behind me here. They're super handy. We use them for other projects, so just make sure that they're clean and put back when you're done. Okay, so go ahead at the very top of your clay here, go and press that down. Grab your knife tool, or you can use a stick or a toothpick. I am a toothpick fanatic. I find they're really sharp and easy to use. And grab the ruler and you can just do a straight cut across. And go ahead, take all the clay away from the edges, bundle it up, put it in a wet rag. Okay, so it doesn't dry out, and then gently pull that up. Smooth out the edges. You can just smooth them out like that. Okay, and then go ahead and just put that on your piece of parchment paper. And this is where you're going to be building your cylinder, right here on this piece of parchment paper. Okay, next step is I would just go ahead and cut this out. Now when you're cutting the long lengthwise, it's just a straight cut down. So I'm not putting this on a slant at all. It's directly straight down, and then just cut that over. And then this one here's the same thing again. Is straight down and cut. Doesn't have to be fancy. And the goal is to have a rectangle. Take the pieces that you just cut, put them in your dampened rag, pick this piece up, and then just put it, make sure you cut this end off as well. Now when you cut these ends off, you need to have it on cut it like a rhombus. So the edges have to be cut diagonal. So they have to go, you're looking at doing a cut like this and a cut like this. So when you join them together, when they are a cylinder, they actually attach like this. So I'm going to angle my toothpick on a 45-degree angle this direction here. It's one of the most important steps that you can do on this project is to have that angle correctly. Now you can see it. You can see the angle on that, so make sure that you do that correctly. And then I'll go ahead and do this side, which is the opposite way. You need to angle it this direction. So this one's this way, this one's that way. Okay, so it's like a kind of a triangle, and then you're just cutting that off like that. All right, so put your little scraps aside in a dampened cloth, move your sticks aside and your rolling pin. They can actually be taken away. All right, and we're going to gently pick this one up. And we're going to create that cylinder, and you can see that those two line up perfectly, just like that. Now you can see this needs to be cut probably just a little bit shorter, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. It just takes a little bit of finessing, so you may find that it's not even You may have to lie it back down and cut it into the correct shape. But you don't want to cut too much off because you do want them to be quite tall, because they look super cute if they're really tall. Okay, I'm going to lift that up again, put it together. Now we're looking at something that's 1/4 inch. You can see that's about roughly 1/4 inch. Anything thicker than that's too thick, and it'll take too long to dry, and we don't want that. So, and also I'm actually not using this. I forgot to use this. So this is a good example of what not to do. So right now, I needed to place that on my circle, and you can see I have quite a lot of excess clay. So I'm going to cut that a little bit shorter, maybe take about 1/4 off, and then I'm going to see if that lines up a bit better, which it does. So now I need to create that angle on this side, which I'm going to do. The last time I created this lesson was last year, so please forgive me if I'm making a few errors. My memory doesn't serve me well. Maybe that's mummy brain or something like that. I'm not sure. Okay, so now I pick this back up again, put this on here, and then connect the two and see if it works and if it's sitting right. It looks like it's pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my vinegar spray that works as a really good slip. I'm going to put it on my fingers and wet down the edges of the circle where that clay will sit. Now if kids like to put a pattern in here, now is the time to put a pattern of some sort. I personally don't worry about it too much, but you can put in a pattern at the bottom of your cylinder if you want, and then go ahead and wet down your edges. I find if you keep these upright, they squirt, the vinegar will come out easier. I like to use my fingers because I don't want it all over my clay. I don't want my clay to get too wet, so I like to use my fingers when I'm applying the vinegar. Okay, so go again, pick it up, and also do that base, right like that. Wet that down. Okay, and then you're going to gently put it on those edges. Start from the bottom and attach the two together. And just make sure that it's all the way around now. This is a bit crooked, so I'm going to just pick it back up again. Actually, that's looking fine too. If you find that it attaches on the edges around you can also do on the sides here and have it wrapped around the sides, as long as you put the right amount of vinegar on there. Now get your finger into it and just attach it. So wet, wiggle, twist and stick is the principle, so make sure you can wiggle that into place. And then I like to join it by pushing it that direction to attach and to get rid of that line. Now you don't need to use water because water just makes it a big muddy mess. It is not your friend. You do not want to add water to this at all. Then if you want to, you can pick it up gently and see, you can see how that isn't put on correctly, but that's okay. We can work with that. We just need to join those together. The cracks, we just join them together. Now kids are going to do it like this all the time, don't worry about it. If you want to, you can put a bit of vinegar on your hands on your fingertips and gently pick it up again. And then just get them to attach that crack onto the cylinder. Now it is a monster. It's not like a functioning mug or anything like that. Just remember when you're making this, it's a monster. It's not a mug. Right, and then you just put it back down, work it a bit more, and make sure that it's quite symmetrical, and then you can start adding your attachments to it. Now inside there's a crack as well, so I would go ahead, wet your finger and gently try and get them to join those two pieces and get rid of that crack as well. Okay, so there's your cylinder. Now to join the parts up, just get a parent to triple check it while they're making their parts. That volunteer parents can go around and make sure that that base is correctly put on. Okay, so now you have this extra piece, which is super cool, and you can add your parts to it. Now this is a piece that's been done and created, so you can see most of these are about 1/4 inch thick, and you can just attach them by you can use these little cups that are in here, the medicine cups that are super nice. They should be on your cart. Most of this stuff should be on your cart, but because we're at the beginning of the season, we haven't got it all. Oh, thank you. We haven't got it all on the cart yet. So I like using these little medicine cups because they're a really good size for eyeballs. So you can just go ahead and get them to push down and then just wiggle, and then they can just pull that away and they'll have two eyeballs there which are symmetrical. They may just want to do, or if they've just attached to the table like mine have, they can go ahead and use this. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. You can just use this little tool to get them off the table, and then you can put those onto your cylinder just by using your vinegar spray, which I just love, as you can see. I'm a big fan of the vinegar spray. And then it's a wet wiggle, twist and stick. So wiggle, wiggle and twist it until it sticks, and then go ahead and do the other one. Oh, I shouldn't do that because that'll drip. So put it on your fingers again. There you go, wet wiggle, twist and stick. And then you can put little eyeballs on there too if you want. If you want to just do little round pieces that go on top. Again, just the same principle, make sure that you wet both here and on the piece of clay. Wet wiggle, twist and stick, and that'll stick on there, and then you can just put a little toothpick through the middle, and that creates a really cute eye. Just make sure they don't go all the way through the cylinder. Okay, and then you can do the other one, and then there's all different things you can do. The sky's the limit. The biggest thing is you don't want these pieces to be too thick. You want to make sure that they're not going to fall off, because you don't want pieces. If you have an eyeball that's rolled off from a cylinder, and the clay leads who are doing the firing find this little ball, they're not going to know that it belongs to this particular cylinder to reattach it. It's not their job. They've got way too much going on as it is. So make sure your job as a volunteer is make sure those parts do not fall off, and if they do, just reattach them with some vinegar. Even if they're kind of dry, they should still reattach. Okay, and then you can go ahead, put a mouth on, or do whatever you want, really. And kids can go nuts. The most important thing is that their name's on the bottom, which I haven't put the name on the bottom of this one. But if they've thought of that at the last minute, just go ahead and pick it up gently, and then they can just write their name. So, and the teacher's name, and so Mrs. H or Hilton, and then it's their first name and then their grade. Okay, make sure that the volunteer parents can read it, and then put it back on your parchment paper and get them to put it on a hard surface and slide it onto the hard surface with their hand right underneath, and that goes onto the drying rack. Just the parchment paper, not the boards, just the parchment onto the drying rack. And that's it. Now if you want to, you can either underglaze, you can glaze, and you can refer to the clay information that's on the back of your folder in the core curriculum. We're actually going to make those up and put them in there so you can refer back to them regarding glazing and underglazing. Thank you.